All right, praise the Lord. This ain't Tyrone coming from the 404. I'm coming right into this beautiful blog. I want to do an actual review of the great movie Creed #3. Michael B. Jordan's actual first directorial debut. And let's get started. First and foremost, we want to make sure we go to the actual website to look up Creed and see the cast and make sure we acknowledge them, because everybody has a different role to play, and these are the actual names of the main characters. Michael B. Jordan is the director. Notice that you don't say the last name because we know Michael Jordan, or Michael B. Jordan, from The Wire, the most amazing television show in the history of America, about Deuteronomy 28 and how it affects African American people in the inner city. They use Baltimore, but we can apply it to any major city of America and it will be the exact same story. Just the names of the people be different. There'll be a different Omar, a different Stringer, a different actual Avon Barksdale. But the fact of the matter is drugs and the people pushing it are the same. Going back to the 60s, going back to the 50s and the 40s. But we were just talking about 2000 to 2008 when The Wire first came out. That young man became the Creed of the classic Rocky franchise. And this is the first time in the history of Rocky that Rocky was not a part of the actual Rocky franchise. Everybody knows Creed is connected to Apollo Creed, the man who pretty much was America in the 1970s. Of course, this is fictional names, but we can put Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield. The story is real life, even though the actual names are not the same. Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, Sugar Ray Robinson, Joe Louis, it doesn't matter. The story is the same. In this Creed drama, Creed 3, I'm going to talk about giving reviews and giving some opinions about it, and I want you to take the time to like, comment, and subscribe. And first, I want to give a shout out to the lead attorney for being a good sponsor of our program, and I definitely would like to shout out also to Bible Gateway, a phenomenal tool to teach the next generation about God. I'd like to give a shout out to my favorite of course, person that I think we can talk specifically about in the aspects of relationships, and the late, great Kevin Samuels, who touched the lives of so many people. And even though he may be gone, his spirit lives on in us, as well as his YouTube videos. So shout out to Kevin Samuels. Look him up online under Kevin Samuels. I promise you, you will see a lot of information about relationships that apply to all races, but specifically the black race. I'm African American, so by default, I must speak for my race. Now, the movie itself, I'm going to give you a couple of points of view on it, but I will say overall, the movie itself was a category of Michael B. Jordan, and of course, they picked the mixed breed Tessa Thompson, who's half black, half white. I would consider the Lisa Bonet of the 1980s. Now the Lisa Bonets, aka half white, half black, are in. So whenever there's an actor that's playing a Nigerian or of a West African DNA. There's going to mix. They're going to put a woman of lighter hue, merging that. And unfortunately, that's because the Ashkenaz are the ones behind this show, and that's what they push. Tessa Thompson, I really don't know her that well as a character. I would say that she is an individual that playing the role of a woman that's having hearing loss, and she's afraid of having going deaf. Well, the movie starts off with her child they both have, now about 10 years old, and the child's deaf. So in essence, the progressive hearing loss that she had when she was born with, her child got the worst of it. It's almost like a cancer. Your mom has cancer, child has cancer, etc., etc., etc. We see this story over and over again. Unfortunately, they don't go into any real depth about the child. They could have just taken it sideways, but I think the writers, and they probably had lots of scenes they cut later on in the show because they felt that the child would be in a lot of ways. I thought I put this thing on mute. How does that call? How did that call get in? I swear to God, I put this phone. I'm sorry, man. People are trying to call me, trying to sell stuff. Let me turn my phone on airplane mode. I get no more calls. It's funny, I get no calls throughout the day, but the moment I put on StreamYard, bam, back-to-back calls come in automatically. It's like, it's almost a wait for me to do a live stream. And I do live streams all the time, but it's funny how it always seems that when I start a live stream and it's 5 o'clock on a Friday, March the 3rd, I get these calls. And they're normally sales calls, scammer calls, recruiting calls, and things of that nature. But let's get back to the point. So, the story basically starts off with Bianca, a.k.a. Tessa Thompson, and then Michael B. Jordan, a.k.a. Adonis Creed, their marriage. And you kind of focus on them having a wife. They're having a life. They don't really focus on Tessa Thompson's family. We don't even, from Creed 1, 2, or 3, know about Tessa Thompson's family. I mean, dang. Excuse my French, but dang. I mean, everybody's got a family. Well, not everybody, because I can say that's true. But I would think in a movie, you need to put some family people in it. Okay, and it saves them money not adding those extra characters, because that's extra dialogue and extra scenes. So I see the game, and I see what they decided to do. Patricia Rashad plays Marianne Creed, which was the wife of Creed. She has 2 children by Creed, but we don't know nothing about those kids. Creed 1, Creed 2, or Creed 3, they don't even bring in the actual children that are biologically hers. Adonis is not even her child. It is actually a child from Creed's affair, because the mother died that Creed had sex with, and the child was given up to adoption because there was no grandmother, there was nobody to take the child. So he grows up hard. Why did Marianne decide to take the child? That's a question they could have done a big job opening up and explaining. Because, again, you know, there's stories in the black community that's happening all the time. I have a family member in my own family that literally was a favorite uncle of mine. Wealthy, black uncle, Virginia. He's married to a beautiful woman in Virginia. We're talking Southern Belle sweethearts. Everybody's under the curse of Civil War, under the curse of slavery. And Virginia, of course, is the capital of the Confederacy. But even African Americans that live in Virginia, they don't make no waves. They follow orders because, again, they are slave descendants. And so even though they are under the slave codes and under the history of slavery, the people in Virginia have a different way of looking at that than those of Georgia, where I live or Oklahoma, where I used to live at. Tulsa, Oklahoma, prime example. So when it comes down to race and when it comes down to prejudice, people out there in Tulsa are going to fight for civil rights. They're going to fight 100 years after a massacre. They're still fighting for reparations for that massacre. Whereas I would say in Virginia, blacks that live up there ain't fighting like they would be fighting in Oklahoma versus Alabama versus Mississippi versus Louisiana. This movie takes place in South Central LA. So right then and there, the formula of the movie kind of sets is not in the South, it's not in the East or the Northeast, it's not in the Northwest, it's in South Central LA. Now, everybody knows South Central LA has been glamorized because of Boys in the Hood. It's been glamorized because of niggers with attitude, NWA. I said the word, yes, but I have to because unfortunately that's what the group was named after. And many of those people that started that group way back in the 90s when I was growing up, when hip hop was starting, they really didn't realize, because I think they just foolish, but I understand why. Because the people that were selling everything were the Ashkenaz, the so-called Jewish people. And they were the ones that were selling the argument of, being raw and nasty with your lyrics. It wasn't really until about the 90s where NWA came out with F the Police and the whole movement of African Americans that I grew up with was violence. And I graduated in 93, and that was the peak time of the civil rights, of the parental advisory lyrics. And so all of the civil rights movement of the 60s and 70s, where we shall overcome someday, turned into F the Police. Sorry about that. I thought I had this on airplane mode. And it's crazy. They're bypassing my airplane mode. Check that out. Alright, fine. Turn this off. You wanna bypass me? Fine. I'll find a way out. Just turn off the app and just let it go. So what ends up happening is that that movement went into the movies of the 2000s. Now we're in 2023, so it's over for that generation. My generation is over. It's now the new generation. So Creed 3 really focused on the next generation. Even the music is the next generation of music that's I don't even recognize. But also I'm a minister and listen to different music anyway, so I don't even have a clue of what's being played. Other than the beats that are created by the minds of man, the reality is that I couldn't relate at all to the actual movies, and you shouldn't. Nobody in their 50s should be listening to music that a 19-year-old listens to. Just like nobody in their 70s should be listening to music of a 19-year-old. We're supposed to act our age. We're supposed to grow, and as the Bible says, when I'm a child, I act as a child, right? But when I become an adult or a man or a woman, I put away childish things. I don't do the children things. So again, this review is going to come from a Christian perspective. I mean, obviously, the title is Pastor Tyrone. So obviously, anybody that reads this or listens to this and listens beyond 1 minute is going to hear biblical exegesis on from a guy who's studying to get his PhD and talk about issues within the African American community. I'm here to talk about good and things that I think could have been improved in the movie. Overall, I want to give the movie 3 stars, maybe 4. But I got to get see the extra editings because again, we all know that this is coming out of the theaters. And so first, it already came out in India, and so that's where I went to see it. I went to see it online from an India movie theater, and then everything gets pushed tonight. So tonight is the grand opening for everybody around the country to go see it. So when they go see it, of course, will they be excited about it? Will they be happy about it? Will they go home and cry? I would say no. I don't think you're going to be excited about it. I don't think you're going to be happy and cry. I don't think that you're going to be, going home and saying, my son's going to be a boxer. I don't think it has the same passion that Rocky had. Rocky was very smart. They focused on a white man that was Italian and his wife or girlfriend. And the whole first 5 movies were about that relationship going through the changes of life, which is great. this is kind of similar, going through the changes of life as well. And the interesting part, though, is that the difference is that people, it's an African American cast with an African American pros and an African American view of what can happen to a Floyd Mayweather fighting and then becoming a personal coach and trainer and owner of a gym. And you know the circle of life. You know, the boxer becomes the former boxer, which then trains new boxers, which becomes former boxers, which trains new boxers. And that's the circle of the boxing life. Now here's what I wrote here in the post, and I want to make sure I describe, because I want to just give you my points as I put this in the post. Because I saw how it related to me. What's so powerful about Creed is that it reminds us of our siblings and the rivalry that we can have because of a tragedy. Now, that is what really the main point of Creed is about. Siblings and the rivalry that you can have because of a life tragedy, such as death of a father, death of a mother, death of a friend, someone gets shot, all that. If you look at Cuba Gooding Jr. and Boyz II Men, what was the tragedy of that movie? Well, the tragedy was that the football player, Cuba Gooding Jr.'s best friend, gets shot. The whole movie, really, that was the ultimate peak of the whole movie. John Singleton did. And then, of course, Cuba's supposed to go to Morehouse, and he's supposed to have the rest of his life with his girl, as if. That does not work. That is not how life works. It doesn't work like a movie. And I'm sorry, but that's the point I want to make sure we talk about as we watch movies. Is the fictitious part of it. It's a movie. And movie isn't real life. Okay? So the interesting part about it is that that's the biggest part. So the point of the movie is that one brother goes to jail for 18 years. And he goes to jail because he defended his younger brother, who was Adonis. Because Adonis, of course, was raised by a woman that was, on drugs and dealing with the world of, and they don't get into a big answer on that. We never go. They could flash back and do a lot of things with flashback to fill in the story on Creed or on Adonis, and they can even flash back. Technically, they can flash back to Carl Weathers. The man is still alive. He's 70 years old. They could flash him into the show right now with makeup on, looking 40 years younger, and build up the Creed mantra. But no one has done that yet. And the man is still alive. He's 70, in great shape. Boxing shape. He always has been. Boxing shape, man. He's 70 years old with a body of a 50-year-old because he takes so much good care of his body. But nobody uses him. Even the writers of Creed, that's his namesake, don't even put him in the movie. Sylvester Stallone didn't bring him back in flashbacks, and at the same time, neither did the new Creed writer or director bring him back in flashbacks. And that's so tragic. So the first thing I would say is that if you really wanted to make the movie great, you could have done flashbacks and brought him in before he died. And of course, this will be before he died in the ring. Everybody should have storylines of flashbacks of what happened. So the second thing about it is, flashbacks of the woman that Creed slept with that make the son. Creed had already had multiple kids, as we learned from the first Rocky series, and we saw those kids as babies, but we never see those kids as adults. That's not right. I think that should be discussed, and that's a part of life. So then I say in my blog here, as you read, my life and what happened in my life, and this is all true. I can't lie about it. When I was 25, my brother, whose character Creed 3 was named after, Damien, was coming home after a bid in the pen. And so, and I need to rewrite that because it may sound like my brother did prison, but I'll need to update that. And so take off the word after, close that. Let me hold up. This is friends. Let me change that, because as I read it, I can see my errors in English language, and we gotta Gotta make sure we update. We don't want error. So I said the word after. It was named. Just put named. Because I mean, who would know what? They could have picked any name. And in this case, they weirdly picked my actual physical brother's name. To this day, I don't know where Damien comes from. I don't know how my mom picked that name, but that's exactly the name that she named him. And no one else in the family I know is, except he has a son now. And he named his son Damien the second. So he's now Damien the first because he didn't want to name his son Damien Jr. He named his son Damien the second. So, but unfortunately, and I don't know how things are going on in my brother's life, but we'll talk about that later. So when I said, so when I was 25, right, I would say, let me update this. Because it seems like it's talking about me. So, put it like this. When he was probably, at this time, was probably about 13, or I would say 12 or 13. Take out the word my brother. Take out the word thee. So, Donis was 12. The character in Creed 3 who was named Damien, right, basically went to jail for, and I need to put the word, went to jail for Donis and was coming home, was protecting Adonis, was coming home after doing, should be doing, not making, an 18-year bid in the pen. An 18-year bid in the pen, okay? The 18-year bid in the pen. And basically wanted to finally get his dream that his brother, who he found out later, Adonis had become the, I need to fix that, had become put this in parentheses, the affair child of Creed, the champion of the world. All right. So basically, this mom had multiple brothers. We don't realize this, but this woman had an affair with Creed, and Adonis was born. But then also the woman has oh wow, thunderstorms coming. Darn. I want to get out and start my car. But then at the same time, like in lots of black families, you have one that is, of course, from one woman. You have another that's from another woman. And then basically, you end up having what I had in my family, what we call sibling rivalries, because the children come from two different dads or two different moms, right? And so, yes, you have blood in each other's loins or blood because the parents, one of the parents is your mom or one of the parents is your dad, but you're not full blood. You're not equal. So then it hurts and it makes life a traumatic tragedy. And I think Michael B. Jordan did a great job of going in and answering and putting this into a very good dialogue, but didn't do enough to, in my opinion, go deep in it. And how can you? I think the movie was about an hour and 45 minutes, a typical time. And of course, they probably focused more on the fight, making the fight feel like watching dancing or pay-per-view. I mean, look, watching the fight, honestly, you almost couldn't tell whether you were watching a Mike Tyson real fight or Evander Holyfield fight. I mean, these are people from my youth. Versus
a fake fight. I mean, Rocky was Rocky versus, of course, Apollo, but everyone know that was a fake fight, and it was glorious. It was Rocky. Well, you couldn't see that in the mind of Rocky versus Drago. We see it now today, but everyone knows in America, when you look at boxing today, it ain't on the same level as it was when Mike Tyson was fighting in the 80s or 90s. It was not on the same level. I don't know if the movie is ever going to get boxing back to that level. I think with MMA and all that, I don't ever think it would. But at the same time, I still go back and watch the movies of the 80s to watch Rocky 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's definitely Rocky 4 when he goes with, I must break you. If he dies, he dies. If he dies, he dies. I mean, those classic lines, I must break you. I mean, Drago is like ultimate. Even today on YouTube, they do skits off of, there's a guy named Victor Drago, named after Victor Drago in Creed, who is a Russian who goes and acts like the guy Dolph Lundgren, who was a Swedish guy, but big and muscular and tall and 6'2". And if you looked at the guy, you'd think he was a fighter. And he goes around and he pranks people, going into the elevators, and he finds regular people, and he literally puts boxing gloves on, and he basically says stuff like, I must break you. And it is the most amazing stuff I ever seen. Let me show you, because I have to say, if you haven't watched Victor Drago, let me introduce you to who he is. You will go crazy listening to this brother right here. Now, why is this important? Well, I think it's because of the mystique of Rocky. So Victor Drago. And you can look at I Must Break You. Just put in I Must Break You. Now, this is the classic Victor Drago famous scene. And when you watch this, it is the most amazing scene you've ever seen.
Audiences everywhere are cheering for Jesus.
That the way this movie came out, it is not on the same level as, of course, the 80s. And that's something that people got to do in the writers. You got to go back and look, because it's not hard to make a great scene. Watch this scene.
The Russian towers above the American. It's the true case of David and Goliath here. It's unbelievable, the condition of
1980.
I must break you.
Now, that was all created by Sylvester Stallone. Shout out to Sylvester Stallone. He comes back now and talking in 2020. They're doing a remake of all of the movies, and they're actually adding footage. And I expect Rocky 7 or Rocky 8 will be coming out very soon, because those men are still alive. And everybody and their mama still looks at this movie as the most classic battle of all time. So we get past all of this, and we get to the end. Oh, actually, let's go back. This is their fight at the end. Let's go back to Drago versus Apollo Creed. And this is what the whole movie is about. Okay? All right. Amazing. Hallelujah. So here's the great Apollo Creed, who's still alive, who they could have brought.
Come on, get your hands up, man.
Who could have brought back. He's 70 years old, and he still looks as good as that man looked right there. He still looks like he's 50, works out, and thank God, because our men are dying every day. So whenever we see somebody who takes care of their body and is still alive, man, in their 70s, we got to give a shout out, because unfortunately, in the African American community, death always happens around 68, 65, 61. I have brothers in my fraternity dying at 60. I'm 49, and I'm like definitely checking my mortality, going to the doctor. Boom, that's all. I got dogs. So hey, shh. Be quiet. I'm talking to the people on this live stream. Hey, shh. Booby, stop it. I'm on live stream. And the reality is that we got to take care of our bodies. Let's get back.
You need an interpreter? It's time to go to school.
You will lose.
Now, they only gave this man a few lines. You will lose. I must break you. And if he dies, he dies. This guy is Swedish. Couldn't speak English back in the 80s. He can speak a little bit more now. But that man is the root of all of this movie. Okay? The whole series.
But this is a paying homage to Muhammad Ali. So we call him Apollo Creed, but historically, this man was Muhammad Ali, minus the fact that Muhammad Ali didn't necessarily fight for America because he was a Nation of Islam guy. In this case, he's fighting for America by wearing the red, white, and blue. And if you look at history, none of our black boxers from the time of the 90s all the way up to today where war fought for America. They weren't soldiers like me, and proud to be a soldier and proud to be a warrior. They were just people fighting. So now, let's get to the end. After all that, let's get to the end. The end of the day is he gets hit. And that's what we look for in the Creed 3 that we don't really see. The struggle. Creed says, no, I'm going to let this man hit me. Everybody's like, throw in the towel. Throw in the towel. Now that's Ann Creed that we just saw come in that screenshot. Ann Creed will be the woman that will be in the Creed 1, 2, and 3 movies that we're getting ready to talk about now with Creed 3. Do we see the passion of this movie? The slow-mo, the smile in slow-mo. The man is dead when he's dead, he's standing up. And again, and then he does the bump. The last bit of life has left his body. Every time I watch it, I cannot get no goosebumps. Every time I watch it, I'm like, oh my God. Then the famous line, Drago.
Somebody get him back down there! There is no movement like Creed. To the right elbow!
Woo, I feel goosebumps.
Absolute pandemonium.
It's the whole movie. I still can watch it today.
Real champion.
What's the stretcher? Somebody sent for us again.
What started out as a joke has turned out to be a disaster.
Creed appears to be in very serious condition.
The man alive.
If he dies, he dies.
Oh, Lord have mercy. If he dies, he dies. Okay? Now, we know he died. Okay? Now, let's go look at the spoofs of If He Dies, He Dies by Victor Drago. Now, we're going to listen to Victor Drago, where is he at? Come on now. Here we go. This is Victor Drago. He is actually going up to the Dolph Lundgren, the actual person who just said, if he dies. This is a young boy, 20-something years later, basically imitating the real Drago of the movie. Now, can we double-click this?
I'm real son of...
All right. I don't know if I can raise the volume. Come on, baby. Let's get it. Can I increase the volume? There we go. Hold on 1 second. Let's see if I can loop it. It's on a loop. Okay. Let's see if I can raise the volume. I don't think so, but let's try it.
Drago, you remember 30 years ago when you lose fight to Rocky in Russia, you was in a bar and you slept with Russian girls. Your name was Natasha.
Run into here. I was just going to go for.
Now that, on the left is the real Drago, and the right is a guy imitating Drago.
Yes.
If you dies, you dies.
Victor, you must listen to this kid.
He goes around the world doing this bit, making millions of dollars because he is playing Drago. Now, we will have to look at him and click on his link, and let's see who he is. 524,000 subscribers, new videos every week. He goes around and he does crazy pranks. So let's go to the videos and beyond the shorts because the videos are phenomenal. Let me pull out one of Victor Drago's classic ones as we can keep going and find it. And let's see if y'all imagine this and can be blown away. He's now going to punk, as we call it, people in an audience. Crazy.
If you dies, you dies.
Sorry.
I must break you.
Dude, I don't want.
I must break you.
Dude, I'm not trying. I'm just trying to go.
Now, this is a funny joke, okay? I want to add a little bit to it. But as I get back to Creed 3, we're going to kind of finish off where we kind of started. Well, Creed 3, basically, Michael B. Jordan, and I thank God for Michael B. Jordan basically comes in, and he is starting off with the storyline of Jonathan Majors. And basically setting up Jonathan Majors' character as a guy who went to jail for 18 years. Shout out to the brothers who have gone to the pen. I think this is a very powerful storyline of those who have gone to the pen, of those who are in the pen. The fighting is one of the things that most of them will do because that's all you can do. So boxing, lifting weights, running, exercising. Why do you think that a lot of people that have been in the pen learn boxing and go out in the world? Boxing is a sport really for those that are poor. It's not a person that has a PhD going to say, I'm going to become a boxer. They may box for exercise purposes, but they ain't doing it because they have to. They're not putting themselves through the pain of getting hit. And matter of fact, in boxing, we don't even see the after effects of the boxing. They did this in Creed 3, so I would give it a star, 4 stars in this section for the standpoint of showing the after effects, and we'll talk about that a little bit later after the fight. So basically, the root of the movie was this. Victor Drago really had, this guy right here, never had any scene in this show. He was named. They did name him. He's the son of Drago, the Drago we just watched in the show a second ago that fought Rocky. So he kind of paid homage to the old movie by at least keeping Victor Drago's name in the whole thing. But he was not actually in the movie. The person that was in the movie was Michael B. Jordan and fighting Tony Bellew or Pretty Ricky Collin for a second time. They bring in that at the very beginning. And that was the kind of fight, and it felt like in a lot of ways like the people were, in my humble opinion, doing a good show, and it was okay. I can't sit back and nod, but in my humble opinion, it was like, how would I say this? I would say, my humble opinion, it was more like watching HBO, but it was fake. And so for all of us that watch boxing and watch fightings, we know that's real. But watching this movie, it was playing off of as if this was real HBO. If this was real, pay-per-view, like I'm putting $100 in to watch this, 5 fights from 11 p.m. until 2 a.m. That's the normal fight times that has been going on as I've been alive. And so, out there in Las Vegas. And so, the interesting part about it was he wins the fight as you would expect him. But the movie shifts over to Jonathan Majors. He doesn't have a girlfriend interest. He doesn't have any woman on his side. We don't even know about Jonathan Majors' mom, his cousin, nothing. All we know is Jonathan Majors comes and he's now wants to be champion of the world. So the writers kind of put him in as, well, he goes to Michael Jordan, as Michael Jordan has this gym, or Adonis has his typical gym because he's a victor. Now he's a 3-time fighter. This is his 3rd fight. His career is now at the end. He wants to get out while he still can think, while he's still got a brain. He's not going to have be debilitated like Muhammad Ali, which I salute that. And basically go on in the sunset. So I would say that Michael Jordan, Adonis Creed character is about 35. And Jonathan Majors might be about 40. He was in prison for 18 years. But he kept himself in tip-top shape. Okay. So now the interesting part about this, okay, was the fact that the dialogue between Jonathan and Michael, or Damian and Adonis, was not really built. They didn't put a lot of emphasis in the relationship of what happened in their past, because he basically left and went to jail, which is like disappearing. And you know what happens when someone disappears? A lot of times family don't see them. And I kind of wanted to be honest When I watched this, it went back to me thinking about my family. It went back to me thinking about my past. I can't say nothing, but I have a similar past that matched this movie in a way that it forced me to put a blog on Facebook about it that nobody watched no more, I might add. I mean, Facebook is obsolete. It was hot back in 2004, but this is 2024 coming up, and nobody is on Facebook now. We're on Instagram and Snapchat, right? And so the reality is you post something on Facebook, it stays on Facebook. I get it. But since Facebook is like I would call it like a eulogy, if you will. When someone dies, what do? We go to Facebook and we acknowledge their death. And also it gives good information for people that can make a good, to honor the person. Even though you have that 10-minute, 1 hour service, you can honor that person 15 years later by going to their Facebook page. That this is things that we couldn't do. It forced me to make a Facebook page for my mom, and she's been dead for 20 years, and people still go to her page and honor her, even though she didn't make the Facebook page, her son made it. So I see the value of Facebook in a very huge way. It's very cathartic. So what ends up happening is that, as I now bring back the picture, I put this. What's so powerful about Creed 3 is that it reminds us of our siblings and the rivalry that we can have because of a life tragedy. When Adonis was 12, the character in Creed 3 named Damien went to jail protecting Adonis and was coming home after doing an 18-year bid in the pen and wanted to finally get his dream that his brother, who we found out later, Adonis, had become, which is, and of course I said the affair child of Creed, so that lets you know that's a big part, the champion of the world. And I'll period that. That's good because that's a huge run-on sentence. So let me put a period after that. That was good. That was a good actual good stopping place. You know how you write, and then what happens is you re-edit. You edit. That's part of writing a book, writing a novel. That's part of life. That's. And this is actual blog. So I don't have to be picture perfect. So then I say, it reminded me of the tragedy the tragedy me, and I should say, and my blood brother. I think that's a very powerful point. But then you also post this to the top. Okay, me and my blood brother, because I have many brothers due to my father making lots of babies with a whole bunch of women. Very similar to what is done in a lot of men's life. Okay. My brother, named Damien too, we both lost our mother at the age of 49. So the amazing part about it is that the character's name is Damien. My brother's name is Damien. They're spelled exactly alike. And that's weird because that name, Henry is a name I hear all the time. It's a very known name. But I rarely hear the name Damien in a movie. It's just not a known name, So if Damien gets to watch this movie, he will be like, man, that's my name. He's going to get real proud. And that is his son's name. He named this his own child, his firstborn son after him, Damien II. So what I said was, it reminded me about the tragedy of me and my brother Damien too, who we both lost our mother in 2001 at the age of 49. Okay, we've always had a sibling rivalry, being 2 years apart. Okay, and I was the older brother. He, as a younger, always strived to be better than me, and I always tried to be an example to him to follow because we didn't grow up with any father figures. My life changed after the girl I was dating wanted to marry killed our child in 1996 and was convicted of murder in the state of Georgia. Having a person in life that gets a life, which is 40 years, sentence is so complex because I never got over that until I went to seminary at Rhema in Tulsa, and I should say at Rhema Bible College in Tulsa, after we lost our mother, 5 years later in 2001, so 96, 2001. It just seemed that Deuteronomy chapter 28 verses 15 through 68 were upon my life, and I could and should say not, the word not. So that's why you want to edit, and I'm re-editing. Good news is that's why you take your time. So, and I could not know why. That's the word. Could not know why. Or, and I did not know why. I did not know why. That's exactly true. You did know why. A lot of us black people especially will say, well, things just happen. And they don't understand. No, it does not. Because I've seen white families and I've seen the blessings on them when I went to Bible school. God does not curse every family the same at all. And these white families, some of them were living right for God, and others of them were not. But yet they still didn't get the same curses that I can say in my family's life and now in my cousins' lives that they're getting. It's not just me. It's now the next generation. It's now their children are experiencing it. It's too late for my aunts and my uncles. They're in the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. It's our time now. And nobody wants to be able to say that I'm 40 and I got to have curses with my 20-year-old kids. Nobody wants to be 20 and see that whole 20 years of their young life full of curses. How can they hope for a good future when they are already experiencing the curse of Deuteronomy chapter 28? So, I now add my story here. And so, I said, I learned the reasons once I started intensely studying the Old Testament as closely as most Christians only know the New. That's so true. My father was married to 5 different women. He had 8 children from them, and he never raised financial or spiritually of them that he never raised financial or spiritually because he didn't know and was automatically under the curse given to the Hebrew Israelites in Deuteronomy 28. Most don't know that it's automatic unless you repent, accept Yahshua change by renewing your mind for the rest of your natural life, as Romans chapter 12, verse 1 and 2 says. My grandmother was under the curses. My aunts and uncles and cousins, etc., I see the effects of the curses. My mother was also under the curse and died at the age of 49. My full and half brothers and sisters, I see the effects of those curses. Their children will be under them if they don't repent, obey, and follow diligently to observe and to do all that is written in the Holy Scriptures. I didn't say this, but Yahweh said this thousands of years ago to our ancestors. And we see the effects in people's lives every day on YouTube and streaming news like the Young Turks, Roland Martin, and other content news creators. Instead of saying news, it's news. So I made an error there. Let's fix it. Good job. That was good so far. Other news, and put an S right here. It's unfortunate, but it's not a lie. We can't sit back and we can't lie. And I admit it. In my own life, I can say I'm battling the curses. No question about it. That's why I'm studying the Word. It's a lot that we don't study. Okay? That motivates, and the rain stopped, because we just had a deluge of rain here. That motivates me to study to show myself approved unto God. A workman that need not be ashamed, rightly dividing, not wrongly dividing the word of truth. 2 Timothy 2:15. Salute to the first-time director from the Wire of Baltimore that made me weep. Lord spoke to me at the gravesite of my mother's funeral on March 16, 2001. After telling me to go to Tulsa, to go to seminary, I didn't know how to pay for it. Then I realized I had an inheritance coming to inheritance that I had an inheritance coming to both brothers, and I decided right then I was going. But when I told my brother Damien, he hated that I was leaving him too, just like Mama did. I hated to leave, but I knew I had to. We were 25 and 23, but it felt like we were 16 and 14 mentally. We had never been on our own. We had to grow up by ourselves. I left, and it has been 23 years since we've been back together as brothers. And I would say back together as brothers. So take away in our 50s. So take away the in our 50s. Back together as brothers. Back together as brothers. And it's still that way. My brother, right now, battling mental illness. He is living with a cousin of mine in Jacksonville, Florida. Doesn't have a place to go or a pot to piss in. I wish that he could get his own apartment, but he got married to a woman and loved that woman, but he didn't love himself to take care of his own life. So due to the curses that are on my father, I see them on my brother. The difference between my brother and I decided to go after God. My brother did not. It's the exact same point I'm making. So as I said, life has dealt us some tragedies, while at the same time, I'm pursuing my doctorate of divinity. Now he has 3 children. I have 3 degrees. And I hope and pray that when he sees this movie, he'll think of us when we were 16, playing football at Fort Caroline Junior High School field. And he was so fast that I couldn't catch him. Great job, Michael B. Jordan. Great job to the new movie sensation of Lovecraft Country and other movies, Jonathan Majors. He is the truth. And that's exactly right. Nobody's going to like what I said, but the good news is I know people saw it. And so one of the lessons I learned here is that when you make a post, people do see it on their feed. And now that you can pin the post and put it up online on Instagram, people see that as well. Hallelujah. So I'm going to take this real quick, and I'm going to go to Instagram, because for some reason it doesn't post on Instagram like it does, but it's amazing. So again, if you are a person that gets to know me, the first thing you're going to see is that I'm a person that uploads and makes opinions, and I'm not afraid of that. And I think it's okay. It is going to affect people. It's going to make people angry. They're going to look and they're going to say, well, you're talking about really, intimate things. But the fact of the matter is that's a part of life. Days are not waiting for us. Life is going to leave us. We are not going to make it. But one of the things I realized is that while everyone's upset, there are people praying. There are people going after God. There are people that are praying and asking God for help. And I'm one of those individuals. I want to be one of those individuals. Praise the Lord. So it looks like, okay, good. There's my post right there. I like that. That was a post that I have. And so now I'm going to go back and I'm going to go to my page, and then I'm going to see if I can post something. Where's the post symbol? It's kind of showing me create. Go to create. And I guess drag photos here. I don't create a new post. Oh, okay. Okay. So yeah, I forgot. Instagram is weird. It's like you either post a picture or video. So that's Jonathan Majors. He was the truth. I mean, this brother literally, I think he stole the movie. I'm being honest. I think he stole the movie. From the standpoint of the movie, Tessa Thompson did not get a lot of talk time. They did Felicia Rashad dirty. They talked about her having a stroke and then recovering from it, and they're afraid that she's going to have another stroke. But here's where it got weird and I didn't like. She is rich. Her husband blessed her with money. He's Apollo Creed. She has 2 children from Apollo Creed. They should be taking care of mama. It's supposed to be a blended family, meaning like my family, where you got different children from different mothers. Why? Because men notoriously cheat. And because they notoriously cheat, the children are born. And women become mature and they still love that child because that child did not ask to be born. That child was born because the people had sex and a baby was conceived. So should you judge the child on the sins of the father? That's the ultimate question. And Felicia Rashad didn't, because that's the whole premise of the movie. Felicia Rashad picked Creed, not knowing that Creed was going to turn to Creed. Matter of fact, she tried not to have him do it. If you watch Creed 1, what was Creed doing? He was working at an investment bank. He didn't want to do investments. He would go fight. And he decided he wanted to fight. And that was all Creed 1. And then Creed 2, more. And then Creed 3. And it was about building up the connection between Rocky being the uncle and to him in a surrogate way. And then he owing Creed because he didn't throw in a towel. And that caused Creed to die. And so he felt kind of a homage. Whereas the other sons, a daughter, which we don't even really hear about, wonder if a book's going to be ever made, because they got so many movies they can write a book on this, okay, and have a full length like Star Wars. I mean, this is on par with Star Wars. And in Star Wars, there is a pantheon of books and Star Wars prequels and Star Wars after prequel. I mean, it's like they write canon on Star Wars almost as if it's the word of God. I mean, literally, almost as if it's the word of God. So if they could do that with Star Wars, why can't they do that with Creed, right? So again, there's a lot more that could be done with Creed that may be done. I don't know if the Creed franchise is over. I don't think it is. But I definitely would say that from the standpoint of Creed 3, that I would have to give it 3 stars. I would say Creed 1 was better than Creed 3 and better than Creed 2. Having Rocky gone from this took a lot away from the power of the show. I don't think Michael B. Jordan could really brought that much power. In the last scenes of the show, they had better music. To start off with music, and it was like hip-hop, R&B, and all that. And then by the time you then heard outstanding orchestras and sounds of choirs, and it was really good. And the fight scenes, I mean, the actual music of the fight scene was really good. I mean, I'm talking between Michael B. Jordan and Jonathan Majors fight. I'm talking about between Adonis and Damien. Really great music. But then there was anticlimactic at the end of the fight. They went all the way to the 12th round, and basically he knocked Michael B. Jordan knocked Jonathan Majors out. And after he knocked him out, they then go sit in the back of the room, and Michael B. Jordan did something that was amazing, very similar to Victor Drago in the fight he had with Victor Drago, which everybody knows that was Rocky 2 when he brought Victor Drago back, and that was he apologized to Jonathan Majors the same way that he apologized to Victor Drago, which then made Rocky and Drago, the father Drago, kind of finally forgive each other in Rocky 2. So again, from the canon of the movie, it was really good because it definitely opened up relationship issues. There was a lot that could be tapped in when it came down to relationships. There's a lot that could be tapped in when it comes down to how we could be able to have healing. And so, like I said, for me, it was very powerful that it forced me
to have a time of just thinking about the aspects of healing and forgiveness and trying to overcome the pain of relationships and the failures of relationships. So I have a brother. I have not only a brother, I have, I think, 4 brothers. 2 of them I don't know because we all grew up with different mothers that were not at all aware of each other because my father was lying to the women he was having affairs with. So in essence, he was moving in different parts of Florida, having these girls fall in love with him, of course have sex with them, of course marry them, and of course a baby's born, but it's all built on a lie. And then when the woman finds out, she now is angry and wants to divorce because every woman supposedly wants to meet the family of the man they're dating. But if the man is lying about his family because he don't want the woman to know, he been married before, he been married twice, he been married 3 times, he got 4 kids, he got 5 kids, he got whatever, 6 kids. My father has most kids out of 8, 7 siblings. He's a 7 sibling of he's a 7th child of 7, and he is the 7th boy. Yeah, I think he's a 7th child of 7. No, he's a 6th child of 7. 6th child. There's a younger daughter. That's my Aunt Rita, and he has the most kids. The other ones, they were smart. They're like most intelligent, wealthy, middle class people. 2 kids, because you want them to go to college. You want them to go to Harvard. You want to get the best of them to give them a better start. The only people that have lots and lots of kids are either very rich people or very dumb poor people that don't give a you know what about the kids. That was my father, the dumb poor person. He didn't care that those kids would grow up without him. He didn't care that those kids would grow up and maybe go to jail. He didn't care those kids may grow up and may become murderers. He didn't care those kids may grow up and maybe die young. That is the thing that I hate to say makes men like him despicable, because your loins, your sperm is valuable, and it should be protected at all costs. But what he really cared about was getting inside of the vagina walls of different women and making those children and not thinking about the consequences of doing that. And it's wrong. The other side of the movie is, for example, Phylicia Rashad, the lady that played the mother Ann Creed. She married a football player named Al Rashad, and they ended up divorcing a long time ago. So she lived the rest of her life, as Kevin Samuels would say, probably having sex until she couldn't have it no more. And now she's in her 70s, coming from a very Ivy League black culture. She went to Howard. She has a doctorate or honorary doctorate. She was the woman of the Cosby Show. She was the woman that was in the 1989, she was the most powerful black female actress on NBC, which at those times, there was never anybody that was a lawyer and a black lawyer married to a gynecologist doctor named Heathcliff Huxtable, and then having 5 kids and being a high-priced lawyer and raising a family after having 5 babies while practicing law. It's impossible. It's impossible. The law is too demanding, but somehow, this is the movie world. So whenever a woman overcomes that amount of odds, it puts her up in a fake land. But in the fake land, it became what a lot of women would aspire to be. Even though a lot of women will fail, but they at least aspire to be that. And of course, the tragedy of Bill Cosby's personal, real life destroyed his fake acting life, which didn't destroy Phylicia Rashad's life, but technically she is only known for that show. Her career never ever blossomed on any other TV station, any other show. And to get a movie in Creed 3 playing this role, basically in her 60s, in her 70s, when she was hot in her 30s in 1986, is an amazing thing. I'm not sure how old she is. Let's see how old she is. I can't judge black women's ages by their actual facial appearance. But as you look at her, she still looks very good for her age. She's 74. 75, almost 75 years old. Again, African American men are dying before 70. So just to make it to 75 is amazing. And to look good enough that you might even want to make love to. She is 74, as you can see, right? And of course, she's born, I didn't know this, she was born in Houston, Texas. I didn't know that at all, okay? Now, the next person that's famous on this show is Wood Harris. Shout out to The Wire, because it's Wood Harris and it's Mr. Michael B. Jordan who are connected to The Wire. And we have to pay homage to these two, because to see them still together years later, nobody would care. But in The Wire, Michael B. Jordan played a little drug dealer that was a guy that was a nice guy. And he was killed in season 1 finale by his so-called best friends. He was a drug dealer that left his mom and dad, or kicked out because her mom was on alcohol, drinking, and drug, and choosing men instead of her child. And he ends up getting killed, gunned down in front of Tupac in a vacant. I mean, it's the most evil murder that you can ever see in the history of television. Everybody and mama cried when you seen that brother die, because he didn't deserve it, but then he did deserve it. It's kind of surreal, because when you watch the whole Wire, he snitched, but then he reneged on the snitching. And Stringer Bell, which was Avon Barksdale, a.k.a. Wood Harris's partner, which Wood Harris played the boss, the kingpin, but he gave the order to his second in command to clean up the world, because the so-called lawyer said you got to kill everything that could put you in jail. So to play this role later on of a coach of a boxer, a.k.a. Michael B. Jordan, when he played the role of being a drug dealer, a real-life drug dealer named Avon Barksdale, just shows you how blessed this guy's career was. Because after playing drug dealers forever, I mean, in the 90s he played drug dealers, and in 2000 he played drug dealers, you would think this guy would be typecast to be a drug dealer forever. Just like people listen to rap and wear stuff and wear hoodies, and they're 60 years old wearing a hoodie like they wore when they were 21. Now, who wants to be 21 years old, right? 51 years old, wearing an outfit of cross colors that you wore when you were 22? I will not wear cross colors and things that we wore in the 90s, in 93, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and I'm in 2023. But unfortunately, that is a lot of our black men are unfortunately caught in that evil cycle of trying to live their old life as their young life as older people. So here's Wood Harris, okay, and Wood Harris was Avon Barksdale. That is Avon Barksdale. The truth about Wood Harris, he was born in 1969, and I didn't know this, but his name is Sherwin. Didn't know his name was Sherwin Wood Harris. Now, Steve Harris, who is Steve Harris? Don't know who he is. He's an actor. He was born in 65, and I never heard of him. So they say he's connected. But this guy, he made it. He went to Northern Illinois University, got a bachelor's, so he finished school. Shout out to your boy. Most of these guys don't even finish. He got his famous role by playing a football player in a Disney picture called Remember the Titans with Denzel Washington, and that was such a great movie. So he crossed over playing that role of a great historical figure before he went to Avon, and then he played the Avon Barksdale figure. But then he left that, and then he went and now is playing an actor of a premier role in the Rocky franchise. So he really succeeded in breaking the barrier that many people play. See, drug dealer movie, and then you see Remember the Titans and Creed. From drug dealer movie in 2002 to Remember the Titans in 2023. the brother's come a long way. A long way. Shout out to your boy. I'm blown away. Now, we're going to finish talking about the best part of this. And I hate to say it, it isn't anybody over to the right. I'm not sure who this girl is, Selena Leva. It's obviously she's half black, half white. She's an American actress. She's a mixed breed. You can't tell what nationality she is. Obviously, you see American's nationality, but we're talking about race. And so you go look her up, and you can see she's a Mendoza. She's 50. She's 50. We're the same age. We're the same age. And, of course, that's why when I look at this movie, I see myself because we're in the last. This is our last phase. Once we get to be 60, we're the old guys. And they don't make movies for 60-year-olds. They only make them for 50 and under. So that's why we want to treasure every bit of this, and that's why I'm doing these blogs, because I treasure all of this. So she plays in a movie called Orange is the New Black, which is a tragedy about women that go to prison. And the bullshit is you hear Orange is the New Black. It is a play on orange, meaning jail, is the new way for black people. It's a play on that word because the Ashkenaz are the ones that push that whole Orange is the New Black. And if you ever looked at Oz, which came out in the 90s, it pushed HBO, the Ashkenaz that own that as well, pushed jail and black men being in jail. And then that moved into the world of drugs and Paid in Full and The Wire and drug life. Thank God most people aren't in drug life, but unfortunately it does touch us, and it's a tragedy, and it's horrific, and I can't sit back and lie about that. So she's my age, she's gorgeous, and her end. She has one child, as you know, because she was smart. She did not want to have it. She's Cuban and Dominican descent, as you would obviously see. Mixing a Cuban with a Dominican makes her. All right, and of course, Latina is what she was. She called, and that's New York. Not obviously. That's notice the Bronx. That the Bronx is one of the poorest parts of New York City. I mean, I'm so glad I'm not born in New York. I'm so glad I never lived in New York. It's full of millions of people, but it ain't all that. I mean, I'm gonna tell you something. The way people live down, it's harder to get out of college, coming out of New York than out of Jacksonville, Florida. By far. So we're gonna talk now specifically to Jonathan Majors. Jonathan Majors, the Ashkenaz, the movie theaters, the Ashkenaz, they have picked him to be the next Denzel. They're giving him roles that the Ashkenaz, aka the so-called Jews, the European so-called converted Jews of 780 AD, that own the movie theaters and own the power of all the parts of the earth due to what they did and the dirty money and how they finagle and contrive, and there's so much about that. I can go into a whole blog on that. But the bottom line is that if you go study history, you go study what Kanye West said about who owns the businesses of today, I promise you that 90% of them are what we call so-called Jewish. Okay? And so it makes it seem weird that they are majority, and that means over 51%, but they're really 90% Jewish, and they all working in tandem. But they pick who they want to be the actor. They pick who they want to be the leader. And every generation, and this generation is this guy right here. There was another guy they almost picked in Star Wars that looks and reminds me of Jonathan Majors. But this guy got picked, and he started being known, and it says ones to watch in 2022. They're telling you these are the people you should watch because they get drama competitions and they make awards by acting. And this guy does a great job of memorizing his lines, playing his lines. I mean, really what acting is what? Memorization of large scripts and then acting them out. That's all you do. But there's some people that do it in an amazing form. Denzel Washington. And there's some people that do it average. And they be on the B movies. This guy's on the A average. He's beyond. So he played in a movie with Spike Lee that when it first came out, he kind of was a younger man. And let's show you some of the movies he's been in. Famous Lovecraft Country that got turned off because of the truth of it and the scientific move of Lovecraft, and a lot of people did not like it. He's only 33 years old. He's right there at the young. He's got his one child, obviously. He gets himself a master's from Yale while getting a bachelor's from North Carolina. So this guy really went to the best school. He got to Yale. That's a very top-notch school. And if you study what Yale is owned by who? The Ashkenaz. Let's look at Yale, and let's tell you who created Yale. All right? Third oldest institution in the United States. And the third oldest institution in the United States. Okay? And look at it, what they did. It's the most prestigious and highly ranked university in the world. In the small Connecticut colony of Connecticut. The same Connecticut as the horrible Hartford, but at the same time it has the rich other parts. Okay. Now, if you look at Yale, they got 14 different schools. And if you get into Yale, you have one. It's a joy that I wish I had a kid. They didn't go to Yale, but I don't have any kids. But I tell you something, it's a great school. All right. But Harvard as well. They both are in the same Ivy League. Okay. What is the Yale origin from? They were to create ministers and lay leadership in Connecticut. Okay. So those that are black and that go to ministry, that in the black church, we're talking the denominational black church, they go to Yale. And they get the title, but they come back and they only do civil rights. And it's noble. But at the end of the day, that the life is what? Struggling, waiting for the next tragedy and living off of it. Kind of, no offense, but kind of like the National Action Network and what's the guy's name who's now left to do it because everybody else is dead and there's no one taking his place. But he goes around and he speaks. Come out of New York and he whenever there's a tragedy, a Trayvon Martin or a murder, he's always there. It's hard, man, to be that kind of ministry. I tell you, that is I think it kills you. So you kind of see a little bit of this school, and I don't believe the Ashkenaz are behind it. I thought it says it's a Welsh name. So Welsh, and the term of Welsh is basically a Celtic language, and it's a subgroup native to the Welsh people. And the Welsh is spoken in Wales by some in England. Okay, it's been known in English as British, Cambrian, Cranbrook, and Cymric. This is what Welsh is. Okay? So basically, they got their own story and they got their own liberal arts curriculum and stuff like that. So I didn't know this brother went to Yale, but that just even makes the reason why he is so powerful. He's not only playing The Hard Day Fall, where they gave him an actual lead in a movie playing a killer, it was a killer, but he played in Devotion, where he plays a pilot that died in the Korean War, the Forgotten War. Now playing the nemesis to Creed. He then also played Lovecraft Country. He then played in Quantumania, called the Ant-Man and the Wasp, that just came out. Loki, okay, the Avengers, all right, and there's many, many more besides that. This guy is 6'1", African, but he's also intelligent. Where I saw him was in The Defy Bloods. This is the Spike Lee movie that he played and did a great job. I didn't see Gully, but I imagine it's a great movie, but I haven't seen it. And then, of course, Ant-Man and the Wasp and Manganese, I haven't seen those. But I did see The Last Black Man in San Francisco, which was a weird one as well. So he has had some interesting movies pretty much since, I think, 2019. So he's come on the scene, but let's see if there's any more before. Let's see if he did stuff as a kid. Looks like, yes, he did. White Boy Rick, Jingle Land, Cap the State, Hostels, When We Rise, and then he did Frederick Douglass. Whoa. Frederick Douglass. Power of the Dog, Out of the Blue, The Trial of the Chicago 7, Much Ado About Nothing. Way back in 2013. Never heard. I didn't know that. All right. So he's known though for out of all things for with Journey Smollett and Lovecraft Country. He's known, and then The Last Black Man in quote unquote San Francisco, which was a very weird movie about Oakland and San Francisco, because technically San Francisco where white people stayed and the blacks stayed across the river in Oakland. So I think The Last Man in San Francisco was basically a homage to San Francisco becoming Ivy League and all the poor blacks stay across the way in poor Oakland. And so that's why he was the last black man in rich San Francisco. So we go and look at, is he African? Of course he's African, right? And the good news is he is kept his full name. He's out of California, and he is basically African American origin. It's true. His parents were, they did a typical job, pastors, and that's great. He's picked an actor role, and I think he's okay. He'll be known, obviously, for Lovecraft Country. He'll be known, obviously, for this. This was a weird show that it was so good. I mean, after season 1, everybody and mama wanted season 2. But the problem was it was so powerful and radical that white people cut it off, because it talked about the 50s in a way that white people did not want to hear about it in 2022. You know, it's like the 50s it's not the forgotten time, but since everybody else that was living in the 50s are now dying, you know, it's like people don't want to hear about the 50s because those individuals are almost dying. So it's kind of like people rather pay homage to the 70s or the 80s and not the 50s, and that's what we're paying homage to in the news today. We're paying homage to the 80s, and in about 10 years we'll be talking about my generation, the 90s. So you'll see the movies that come out in about 5 years, 7 years. So can I say that Jonathan Majors did a great job? Yes. Can I say that he was worth the salt? Yes. Can I say that I'm proud of him? Yes. I think they could have gave him a lot more to talk about. They could have gave him a lot more dialogue. The man played better roles. He played roles in Lovecraft Country. He played roles in Devotion. I mean, he is a high-powered actor. And I think they did a disservice to him in not giving him depth of character. I mean, even in the parts where they both were talking to each other and having to talk about real-life issues, it just seemed a little contrived. It seemed a little fake. It didn't feel to me, working this ankle here, it didn't feel to me like, man, what they could have tapped and they could have pushed a Rocky 4, a Creed 4. If they had done a better job, there could have been a Creed 4. Because you got so much more depth. You got Tessa growing up and with Creed. But how many more fights can Creed have? One thing what Rocky did was it was about Rocky fighting, and then it was about Rocky quitting, because he did not want to keep fighting. Why? Because he had a wife. 2, he had children, and 3, he wanted to. It's not healthy. I mean, so how many really series can you have? And that's why I'm proud of Rocky moving on. And if you kind of notice about Rocky, you had death always playing a big part of his movies. Wife died, children move away. It was always hovering death and the issues of death and the consequences of, but that's part of life. So my question is, when are they going to talk about death, and when they're going to talk about it? Because I can tell you, I've experienced death. I'm talking about it. You're going to experience death, and you're going to have to talk about it, or you're not going to make it. So I want to say that I think that Rocky will get a C.
I give, like I said, lots of credit to the storyline. I give lots of credit to the plot. I give lots of credit to the writers of the script. I do think there's a lot of things they could have done more. They've already had, 2 other movies to give feedback. We're talking, each movie is an hour and a half, so that's 1 hour and a half plus another hour and a half is 3, plus this hour and a half. Now we're at 5 hours. And so, all I'm saying is that there's a lot more they could have done. So I end up the internet saying thank you for listening, and this is my opinions on this, and I say like, comment, subscribe, add to. We love to hear your comments. Thank you for watching. It's Pastor.